So thank you all for being here today. I'm very excited for being a participant for today's sections. So with no further introductions, let's dive into the paper. So in this paper, as he mentioned above, this paper I'm going to talk about the performance and efficiency assessment of drone in search and rescue operations. Right. So in this paper, I'm going to talk about in this paper we will talk about 5 sections. First is the introduction, where we talk about the benefit of the drones for the search and rescue operations. Next, I will also discuss some of the related work in the past. And after that, I'm going to talk about the result which gathered by the related work in the past in the previous sections. After that, I will point out some of the limitations which are still existed in the today's paper. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the proposal for the future ideas in order to overcome its weakness. Did that clear to everyone? I'm sorry, did that clear?
Continue.
Thank you. So let's dive into the first part of the paper, which is the introductions. So before I start this paper, I have a question for everyone, not just for myself. Why the idea of using unmanned aerial vehicles or UAV was proposed? So after a deep research, and I have possibly found the answer. So as we all know that the search operations and rescue has been a very, very challenging activities, especially recently when people are witnessing many natural disasters, such as volcanic eruptions, earthquake, and hurricanes. And when we take a deep look at all this searching of this operation, we find one thing in common, which is time. Time is very crucial. The idea to use drone with artificial intelligence, or AI for short, is to help with the searching procedures. So with a fleet of drones, people can scan a considerable area in a very, very short amount of time, which I will prove in the later part of the paper. We're reducing the amount of cost, as well as generating a safer working environment for the workers. So let's take a closer look at the first subsection of part 1, which is the use of drone for search and rescue operations. So the use of drone has dramatically exceed the expectations set for them. Drone right now at this moment have proved that they can perform tasks which much greater efficiency and speed rather than human or ourselves. Here is some of the advantage that I have conducted over the research. So first thing is that they can work 24/7. They can work non-stop, no matter the weather or any terrain or environment. Another advantage I found is that they can get in and out quite easily compared to human resources. And another thing I discovered is that using drone, which is easily to replace, can decrease the collateral damage and save the life of both the victim and the rescuer. Moving on to the second subsection, which is the use of AI in deploying drones for search and rescue operations. So in here, I want to highlight the first key point and for our paper, which where we believe that is the most important, is that the communication and cooperations. So you might ask yourself, like, why is that important? So I'm here to answer you that the key for the successful operation is communications. Right now, at some point during the operations, the rescuer can lose the contact due to many other reasons, such as the fire, the weakness in the satellite line, or something like that. But with drones, we can fix that problem. Each drone can capable of setting a very stable communication line, and because of that, they can transfer information to each and one of them to the head to the base, to the headquarters. And because of that, because of there's no interruption in the communication line, which will improve the performance of the operations. And next thing, which we also find is very important, is that it will have a significant benefit in economic. Now you may ask yourself, like, why will that be a reason? Because we, in our research paper, we have read and done a lot of research, and we find out that the people that are needed for one fleet of drone for this operation are less than the traditional way that we are using right now. We do not require as many people as we are doing right now. So that's the reason why we believe that the use of AI is very important. So that's the end of the first section. Now let's moving on to the second section, where we talk about the related work in the past. So in this section, as I mentioned above, I'm going to talk about some of the previous research paper that we find it very interesting. So in order to save time, we will focus on the most three that we found is have a significant impact to the paper. So first, the first article we choose is the drone for remote collaboration in wilderness search and rescue. So the idea here is to using drone with heat camera to search for missing people. So now the idea seems very simple, but it's not that simple. So as you see here in the image one, you can see that there are two persons. One is I'm sorry. All right. So as you can see here, we can see two people. One is, I will explain this image a little bit because it's quite difficult to understand. So in here, on the person on the left is holding a mobile phone. That person is not holding the controller for the drone. That person is holding a mobile phone. The second person, which will be in the base controlling the drones, as you can see on the upper right corner of the image. So in this image is the basic communication line between the field and the base. So in the image number two, right here, as you can see, can you see the little white dot here? I don't know, can you see it or not?
Yes, we can.
All right, so in this image, this little white dot represents for the heat signatures, which we can capture, which the author captured from the drone. So here we will have a closer look on the desktop, on this one, on the desktop of the base. So you can see here the picture on the picture A, we can see that. So this is the entire screen of the desktop in the base. So the image on the left, you can see is the entire full control of the drone. And the picture on the right is you have like, there's like a Skype here. I'm pretty sure it's like some kind of communication line. I'm not sure which one they are using, but this one, the screen on the right will be responsible for the communication for the communication between the field person and the base person. So take a good look, and we will talk about the result later. So next goal I want to mention, which is very important too, is the potential use of unmanned aircraft system or drones in mountain for search and rescue operation. So in here, the idea is to focusing on comparing So instead of proposing an idea, they're focusing on comparing the amount of time for two specific operation, which is classical line search technique, which we are using right now, or CLT for short, and compared to the drone snowmobile techniques, which is the DST. So in here, I will explain more about what are these two techniques. For the CLT, is more about the human resources, since the search was by foot, apparently what we are doing right now. The second thing is DST, where the search was performed by drone and snowmobile. So you can see the image on the left right here is where the experiment was conducted. So in this situation is the simulation where the unconscious victim is no cover ground, which means that the victim was covered by the snow, which is basically make it even difficult for the classical line search technique to perform. So that's the idea about in the wilderness. But recently we are facing with the COVID-19. So many people might thinking like, well, for the search and rescue operation, it doesn't really relate to COVID-19. But I'm here to say that it does, because for the search and rescue operation, is often related to the situation of life and death. And personally, we believe that it's the same thing for COVID-19. So another article I want to bring up is the artificial intelligence and drones to combat COVID-19. So in here, the idea is to use a drone to spray each place with a target to reduce the amount of time of the operation by half. So the spraying is also one of the useful way to contain the spread of COVID-19, but it will be a very challenging task that require a long period of time. So instead of using human resources, we would use drone. As you can see right here for the image on the left, you'll see the full structure of the drone. Here you can see here is the Corona killer drones disaffecting in India, which in the past was a very highly effective continent on the world. So those are three main articles I want to mention that I want to highlight the idea of this paper. Now we will moving on to the results section. So based on the research paper that we found in the past in a section 2, now we can conduct some of the results. So first thing is that drones are able to cover a much larger area in less amount of time compared to people. And because of that, we are able to reducing the impact of the limited battery capacity. So in here, I have two tables. So in table number 1, which you can see is right here, we have three main sections. First is human contact. The second is total search area. The third thing is the third is search area for a minute. So you can see, and you might, that seems very promising. That seems not so much. But when it compared to the DST, as I mentioned above, you can see the result for the using drone is very, very promising. So as you can see here, you can see the significant change in the second method. You can see that for the less amount of time, we are able to cover a much larger area. So we truly believe that that is a significant impact comparing to the classical search operation. And besides that, we also found another result. So we take a look and we figured out that using drone can give a better look at the scenario, because some terrain or environment, it might be really difficult for the rescuer or for the human to be able to engage in the area by foot. But with using drone, we can have a really, really clear look at the scenario. And it also reduces the possibility of rescuer getting injured, which I already mentioned above. So now after that, we're going to talk about some of the limitation. Well, with all of those advantages, you might think, well, what can go wrong? And I'm here to tell you there might be some limitation for the drone. So first thing, you might hear this that as I mentioned above, you might know that, well, with a much larger area to be covered, it will reduce amount of the battery life. But in this section, it also one of the number one concern for the user, because in the real scenario, we do not know how long the operation will happen. I mean, for all the experiments, we can like estimate the amount of operation that will happen. But well, what will we do when the operation take a much larger amount of time? Well, that's the reason why the battery life is a number one concern for this proposal. So first thing I'm going to talk about, so the second and third limitation, which I want to gather them in one sentence, is that is the hardware and the software. For the hardware and the software, we need to figure out some design for the drone for both hardware and software for it to be able to carry out the task no matter the weather or the situations. It needs to be ready for action in any kind of circumstances. And next thing we worry about is the camera sensor, because we cannot just include a low quality camera. The camera need to be, as the drone, the camera and the sensor need to be fully function in any kind of weather. We need a clear image to send it back to the headquarters, so the people at the headquarters can have a clear judgment about the situations. And also, as I mentioned above, is about the communication line. The communication line, even though that we can set up a clear communication line, but right now at this moment, the range of the line is still limited. We need to, we need to be able to figure out, no matter what the distance are or is, the communication line is always need to be stable for the operation to be conducted. Last thing that we also found it very interesting and necessary is that the interaction with human. Why is that? Because in the situation of life and death, it's very hard for some people to remain calm and make a good decision while they are facing a drone. I mean, the human element are still needed on the field. So we need to come up with some ways to make sure that the drone have good interaction with human. So based on that, we have come up with some of the proposal that we prepared. So the first thing we think about is the AI algorithm. So we need to think about and consider about the field that might affect the operation, such as the weather, the battery life, or other kind of limitation that I mentioned above. So in this one, we might want to answer the question, which AI algorithm will work the best? Because we want, because every drone is like a gear in the big machines. They have to work smooth and do the right task that they are assigned for in order to perform the task successfully. Because right now we are talking about the life and death of a person. So nothing can go wrong. So the AI algorithm play a very important role in this proposal. And the second thing we want to talk about is the equipment and the architectures. So as I mentioned above, again, so the equipment, we need to figure out which material are suitable for a drone to make it light enough, but also strong enough for every kind of terrain or environment. Not to mention the architecture. We don't want a huge or clumsy drone. We want to be light, small, convenient, so we can easily get access to any kind of environment. So for this section, I have a table right here, which is from the previous research paper, talk about the different type of drone along with their advantage and disadvantage, as you can see right here. So which I reached my 35 minutes, and that is all for this paper. And I'm glad that everyone here is listening to me, and I am welcome to any question if you have right now.